it's really frustrating. And not only that, it gets to the point sometimes where it just freezes. Like the Note 7 just becomes completely unresponsive, and a lot of that has to do seems to be with the camera. When I fire up the camera, and especially when I fire up the camera through Snapchat. Snapchat, it just is a horrible app on Android. It just hangs up the phone. I haven't used it as much on the Snapchat on my Pixel, so I don't know exactly how it performs, but I have installed most of the apps that I normally would use, even the apps that I could live without, that I've actually at one point uninstalled from my Note 7 because I was trying to troubleshoot which apps were causing the issue. So the Note 7 so far has been, the Pixel XL has been really buttery smooth in terms of its performance, even with all these apps installed. Whereas the Note 7 just has a lot of hang-ups. It would get, like, the processor would overheat and it would get really sluggish, or just really becomes completely unresponsive to where I have to reboot it, reset it, which is really frustrating. It's really frustrating, especially when I want to take a picture of something right away, or I want to do something right away, and then I happen to catch the phone when it's having issues, like performance issues. It's just really frustrating, considering I've only had the Note 7 for less than a month, and it's a new phone, premium paid new phone, and it's having all these issues. I can understand that there are problems with previously made apps on the latest. This is Marshmallow on the Note 7's Marshmallow, having issues with the latest Android OS. But come on, I mean, there's only so many excuses I can make for the Android platform, or in this case it seems to be the Note 7, in terms of performance. So maybe if I stayed with TouchWiz, I wouldn't have that issue. Who knows? But that's just my experience, and again, this is all about my experience. So the way I set these screens up with all my kind of different categories of what I do and how I use my phone, I wouldn't say I use these home screens all the time, but it's a nice way to just go to a page if I'm in a certain mode, if I'm in work mode, and then have access to all these apps that I would normally use when I'm in that mode. But the issue I have is that Nova Launcher has this nice function to where if you scroll through all the home screens, it's like an endless scroll. It'll go back to the first home screen. So if, like, system, if I scroll through all my home screens, I'll end up back at system, and the home page, the wallpaper resets as well, which is nice. It's seamless in that respect, and I wouldn't say this homepage layout is the most efficient way to access apps, but it's the most organized way to access apps. So the problem with Android Nougat is it runs into a dead end. See, like, I try to go any further and it's a dead end. So what happens is that, you have all these home screens, but it's just left to right, and you can't go back to the first. It's not an infinite scroll, which I have a real issue with. Because now I have to shuffle back and forth. I have to remember to go left and right. Whereas on my Note 7, on Nova Launcher, I can just go, just keep scrolling until I get to the page that I want, which is kind of annoying. Again, it's not a deal breaker, but it's just annoying. So when I go all the way to the left on the Pixel, it becomes Google Now, which I guess is nice, but Google Now I want to access, like, right away, so I put it right on my I guess the launcher, I guess you call them, down here. So it's functionally, if I was only using one home screen, that would be great. But I have all these other home screens, and maybe if it would go to Google Now on the very right, that would be something, but still kind of stupid. I can access Google Now by other better means, by one click, rather than have to scroll all the way down that way. So it looks great in terms of how it can slide over, but I think functionally it just has no purpose. Like if anything, it's just a restriction, and I just canceled out something that I might have needed. So that's stupid. So that's kind of an annoyance with that. And I think other than that, it's fairly, it's not, it doesn't feel like a completely restricted, like how it doesn't feel necessarily how I described the difference between the Note 7 and S7 in terms of hardware and some software, but it does feel like I have to take somewhat of a different approach to how I use the Pixel as opposed to what I've been traditionally, how I've been using Nova Launcher on the Note 7. And I don't want to install Nova Launcher on the Pixel because it really seems to defeat the purpose of having the pure Android experience. And, I don't want to risk performance issues. I don't want to invest all this time into setting up Nova Launcher on here and then have performance issues. So I really want to kind of adapt to using the pure Android experience now at this point. And the differences are really not big enough to make me want to go to Nova. I mean, Nova Launcher has this backup system where you can kind of restore the setup I had here. It's not foolproof because you have to reset all your widgets, which is a pain in the ass. So like all these task lists, I'd have to reset anyways, so it's not a big deal. And again, the differences are really not huge, just small functionality issues just kind of annoy me. So which brings me to Google Assistant, which is supposedly going to make the Pixel, it's supposed to make the Pixel XL different or better than any of the other smartphone choices out there, including iPhone. It's basically Google Now. I don't, I guess the real, that actually is Google Now. So the real Google Assistant is right in this button here, the home button. If you long press it, you get this, you get basically the Google Assistant comes on.
I don't understand.
Which, the problem I have with it is that it's solely voice input. So if you want to type in queries, you would either go to Google Now or you'd have to go into Allo with the chat app and go to Google Assistant and type in queries by hand, which I think is stupid. Like, I don't understand why they don't make it consistent across the whole operating system. Because obviously, if I'm sitting in a room, like in a meeting or something,
this is the top result.
I don't want to have to call out my voice, like use my voice out loud to interrupt what's going on in the room. But if I wanted to type, that would just make so much more sense. And going to Allo all the time to do it, why would I need to use the Google Assistant then? If I could just go to Allo all the time, and that's the actual extra click going to Allo. And then it just seems like Google is not really thought it through and just still keeping everything segregated as if they fear one app or one part of the functionality is gonna not succeed and they could just cut it out and drop it and kind of excise it. I don't see why. I mean, it does say like the Google Assistant does say I don't support type input now, and then it suggests to use Allo. So maybe they're going to insert it later, but I just don't see why they would take it out. Like, why would they not include it at this point in the launch point? Because I really like the Google Allo experience of kind of chatting. Like the whole thing about cell phone or smartphones is the chat culture. Like typing. Just being, you're not gonna, most of us who prefer to type in chat, kind of view people who are obnoxiously on their phone and talking to people out loud as kind of douchebags. So, like being forced to talk to Google Assistant out loud just feels like counterintuitive to the whole smartphone culture at its core. You know, why not give the ability to do it both ways? It just feels like they didn't think it through. So that's a big gripe I have with Google Assistant at this point. I think I've gone on quite long enough in terms of my experiences with the phones. It's definitely not in depth, even though this I've been talking for quite a long time. I never intended for this session to be an in-depth review of the Google Pixel or the Note 7 for that matter. But it's also more of kind of a goodbye to the Note 7, and I just kind of wanted a record of what the Note 7 looked like and what kind of the experience was, because I really like this phone a lot, despite some minor gripes. The major gripe I have is the performance. I just couldn't stand that it was hanging up, even though it's a premium phone, brand new, and already I'm experiencing lag, which is just completely unacceptable. And obviously, again, the crippling of Oculus Gear VR, the fact that they're no longer making the phone, so they're not going to support it. They're not going to update the phone, most likely, most definitely, I should say. And you know, the inherent danger of the battery possibly exploding or possibly having errors. So those were things that just really kind of sealed the deal in terms of